I was actually slow to warm up to the Funkos, but now I kind of
Which is funny because George collects stuff.
Cleaned up and he's got the cologne on, and that's the creepiest moment in the entire movie.
I don't know why, but when I think of shut-in, my mind goes right to being disabled. I don't know why. It's either being disabled or the weather.
Okay.
Let's get to the good part. Welcome. This is fun. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we are from madwolf.com. Glad to do Fright Club live on Facebook. Well, we are glad, but we're kind of sad because normally we would be at the Gateway Film Center, our home away from home, in Columbus, Ohio, doing this.
Means we have to be at our regular home all the time now.
That's right. That's right. So, all of us are having to make adjustments. And by the way, we hope everybody's healthy and washing your hands and sanitizing and staying safe. But we're glad to have you because this does give us a nice chance to let some people who aren't in our neck of the woods experience the Fright Club thing.
That's right, actually. I don't know if you know this or not, but George mainly does our Facebook stuff, and I mainly do our Twitter stuff, which means that a lot of our Twitter people who are not anywhere near Columbus, Ohio, hopefully are able to join us today. So if they're here, we want to say, hey, Jenny, hey, Dave, hey, Jamie, hey, Silas.
Omar.
Hey, Omar.
Fright Club Nation.
Fright Club Nation, yeah.
Yeah, welcome. We're so appreciative of the friends that we've made since we've started this thing, and we're having a blast, and so we're glad everybody could join us. We're gonna have fun talking about what else right now but shut-in horror, and I suppose that'll start with a definition of just what we call shut-in horror, because we've debated this the last few days. What qualifies as shut-in, what doesn't? But we'll get to that. First, we do want to say thanks to everybody that came out. The last time, I think we got in one last Fright Club Live at Gateway just a few days before.
Yeah.
Things got really crazy.
It was back when Brandon was still trapped in England.
Oh, my God.
So we're so happy to report that Brandon is home and his basement flooded. And he's having a really shitty 2020, but we love him.
We were so anxious for him.
We were really anxious for him.
Which, Brandon...
We just kept thinking of him like 28 days later. He's like Cillian Murphy running through the streets of London with zombies after him. It was terrible.
I think the message here is that we were the victims. And not Brandon, who was almost stuck in England. But yeah, it was so nerve-wracking. But
we're glad he's home.
Yeah.
And Katie. Glad they're both home.
Exactly. And we were at Gateway, and we did our one classic for the year, which was Eyes Without a Face, which was really great to see on the big screen. And we had a really great crowd. We appreciate you coming out there, risking life and limb to have some fun with us.
We hope you're still all very safe and healthy.
Exactly. But it was great to see that classic on the big screen, as it always is. I love when we do the classics.
Yeah.
And we got some, I think everybody liked it.
Yes, I do. Our topic was bad doctors, and so naturally, Reanimator came up. And we talked for a minute about Stuart Gordon.
Yeah.
And we were so sad.
He was only 77.
I think I thought that he was 72.
Was it 72?
I thought it was 72.
Still, it just seemed too young.
Yes.
Really. And that was a shocker. I know that a lot of people that I saw reacting on social media, nobody really saw that coming.
No, and he's such a he was such a nice man. Not that we knew him well, but we did get to meet him one time, and he came off as an incredibly nice man. And he's got a lot more, I think, films than everybody realizes. And one of the ones that I think is the most underseen, I think, is one of his latest films, which was called Stuck. He co-wrote and directed.
Yeah.
It was super weird. It was based on a true story.
Right.
It did not seem like it should work, and it did not seem like a Stuart Gordon film at all, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I was surprised by how much I liked the movie Stuck.
Yeah, and I probably should go back, because when we did talk about him last time, I made that joke about him, having eyes for, and I don't want to come off that he was lecherous in any way.
No,
he was
a
not.
very, very nice
He was,
man.
but let's just say that he was probably glad that I was taking the picture and she was in the picture with him. That's all. I don't want to give off any illusions that he did anything improper. He did not. He was totally fine. Just a real shame. But I agree with you. Stuck. If you haven't seen Stuck, look that one up, because it's a movie that if you watched and tried to guess what famous horror director directed
you would not. No,
you
wouldn't
definitely
come up
would
with
not.
him, no.
That gets us to shut-in horror.
Yeah.
Pretty much an obvious topic right now.
Right.
Everybody kind of hunkering down, doing their thing. But I think some of the ideas we got, different people have different ideas, I think, for just what is shut-in. Case in point, our good friend Dino from the Whiskey Business podcast, which is a great podcast.
It
Look
is
it up.
a great podcast. This is where we got the idea to drink today.
Yeah, we never would have had that idea.
No.
He suggested right out of the box, Wait Until Dark. I love Wait Until Dark.
Yep.
But it's not a movie that I would have first thought about that jumped to mind when I thought of shut-ins, because I know toward the end there she actually is held captive in the house, but I don't really consider that a shut-in.
No, I mean I think that it works.
Good movie though.
There's one that we're going to talk about today that we can bring that back up. I mean I think it sort of all feeds into the same theme of the one that did make the list. But there's another. I mean there were a couple that were on and off and on and off for me, and finally I think the line we drew was between captive and shut-in.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some still that we're going to talk about that kind of dance between that, but we have a whole podcast on captives in horror, mainly so we could talk about the movie The Woman, which we like to talk about as often as possible. And so that's where we're not going with this, is necessarily being held captive, unless there is some real overlap in just being shut in, either because of weather or because you've gone crazy or because you are disabled to a degree that you can't leave. And there's going to be some sort of interplay with captive, but on the whole, it's not captivity horror.
Yeah, and we've got 6, top 6, top 5, and then a few underneath each entry to throw in there. So you want to get to it?
Yeah.
So we'll go top 6, top 5. This is number 6 on our shut-in. I almost said captive. See there? This is from 2016, and this is one I don't think we've ever talked about this movie before. After getting in a car accident, a woman is held in a shelter with 2 men who claim the outside world is affected by a widespread chemical attack. It is 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Something's coming.
And this is one I remember it had a lot of secrecy around it, because once the title dropped and it was Cloverfield, everybody, it's got to have something so directly to do with the movie Cloverfield. And it really didn't. I mean, I think they tried to keep it in the same universe, but it really didn't have a whole lot to do with the movie Cloverfield.
No, it's definitely not a chemical attack, though.
But I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I loved it. I liked so much about this movie. I liked so much about it. One of the reasons that it's made the list is it's one of the movies that but it kind of toes the line between captive horror and shut-in horror, right? And that's the whole tension of the movie, is because Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character wakes up and she's handcuffed to a bed. Well, that's every human female's nightmare. And one of the things that I love, I think that they do really effectively, Dan Trachtenberg directed this movie, and one of the things I think that he does really effectively is generate a lot of tension with what seems like mundane moments.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that is done incredibly well, it's basically a 3-man show, and all 3 of them are just spectacular, especially John Goodman.
Oh.
When John Goodman comes out, he's all cleaned up and he's got the cologne on, and that's the creepiest moment in the entire movie. You're like, oh, Jesus, I didn't see that coming.
When we saw it, that bothered you for days.
It did.
Just that scene. When he came out, Johnny going courting, that was really creepy.
It was.
And it's interesting, just the last couple of days, because if you're a baseball fan, yesterday was supposed to be baseball's opening day. So I did a video talking about baseball movies, and then we're talking about the movie Babe, where he played Babe Ruth. And it's one of those movies where the actor's good, but you can tell he's not a baseball player. It's weird to say that John Goodman wasn't very good in that, but because he's always so good. And in this one, he's so good of how the character changes from, you're believing him. He's just as caring for their well-being, and then slowly it gets more and more sinister, and then it takes that other swing toward the end with, is there really something out there? Is he telling the truth?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that the tonal shifts and the tension are dealt with so incredibly well in this movie, and I think you forget that it's really just 3 people.
Yeah.
And a vat of a really caustic chemical. It's all.
Yes.
It's the whole movie. No, I really, really love that. Of course, I also love Mary Elizabeth Winstead in everything. So.
Yeah, and if you didn't know, at the very beginning, when she's breaking up with her boyfriend, the voice is Bradley Cooper.
I did know that.
Yeah, the voice.
Which is, who breaks up with Bradley Cooper? So one of the movies that was almost on this list that reminds me a bit of this film is, I think kind of fits in the same category, is Berlin Syndrome, which we've talked about actually on a number of occasions, and I think that it's an underseen and really effective movie.
I agree.
It didn't finally make the list because I think it is captive horror. It's really, really good captive horror, but she doesn't start off a captive.
Right.
And that's one of the things that Good Guy Jim, actually, because really, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she starts off a captive, but not everybody does. And I think that was why I toyed with having Berlin Syndrome on this for that same reason. She doesn't start off that way. She just winds up that
Good
way.
Guy Jim, by the way, is John Gallagher, the guy from 10 Cloverfield Lane. And we call him Good Guy Jim because we used to watch one of the few TV shows we have actually watched religiously the last few years is The Newsroom. And he played a guy named Jim, and he was a good guy. And we referred to him, because we always give people nicknames, as Good Guy Jim.
That's right.
So now that's his name. So there you go. So that's 10 Cloverfield Lane. And the Berlin Syndrome, I agree. That's a movie that was better than I expected it to be. And also, it's because Teresa Palmer was better than I've ever seen her.
Yes,
She
she's
blew
spectacular.
me away in that movie.
She's
I
spectacular.
did not expect that performance, but that was a good one as well. So that is number 6, our fuzzy math. Top 6, top 5 of shut-in horror. So let's go to number 5. And this is one where I'm going to be absolutely no help because I have not seen this movie. But it's one that we actually talked about once when we had Fright Clubber number 1, John Dean, on
That's
with
right.
us to talk about German horror.
We did German horror, and this was on that
And this is from 2010, just when Michael arrives in Berlin to visit his ex-girlfriend. A terrible virus starts spreading across the city at a rapid pace, turning people into mindless, homicidal maniacs. It's Rambach Berlin Undead.
It's a good one. It's kind of a cross between 28 Days Later and Night Eats the World, which is another movie that came very close to being on this list. The Night Eats the World is an introvert who is holed up inside an apartment building that isn't his. He doesn't live there. And that's just where he was when the epidemic hit. And basically, because he is an introvert, he has the skills that he needs to survive because he doesn't really care if anybody else is with him. He can be really quiet, and he just kind of studies what's going on. And it's a fascinating movie. I really liked it, and it has a lot in common with Rambach Berlin Undead, except that it's a lot more. That's also got a big 28 Days Later vibe because first of all, they're not really zombies. It's more of it's more of like a rage virus that they have, and he's trapped inside an apartment building that isn't his. And none of the apartments are his, and he doesn't really know the layout, and he gets to know some of the other survivors, and they very cleverly figure out how to, make the most of the situation, and also the other one it reminds me of actually is Berlin Syndrome, because there's a lot of people trying to figure out how in the fuck do I get out of this building? And, it's tender, the performances are really strong, it's clever. They do things that aren't idiotic. You think to yourself, yeah, that's what I would totally do. That's exactly what I would try at this very moment. It's scary. I enjoy that one a lot, and I think that it is wildly underseen. Are you reading comments?
I am reading comments.
I'm far too myopic to be able to see that from here.
We got a couple thumbs up for Wait Until Dark,
yeah.
and also somebody.
There's Jamie Ray.
Yeah, and also commenting about the Funkos. There are some Funkos in the back. Can we do a Funko check? We've got I've got Chief Brody from Jaws is back there, and then she has got Beatrice Kiddo.
That's right.
From Kill Bill. You might have heard of John McClane from Die Hard. I've got him there, and then of course she's got Leatherface.
Leatherface.
By the way, Meatoxin says Megan hasn't heard of Die Hard. Is that true, or are you just poking at me?
They're going to spend the whole episode bitching about all the movies she hasn't seen. God bless you, Megan.
Oh, Jesse is asking, does the Autopsy of Jane Doe count?
That's a good question.
We both really enjoyed the
do.
Autopsy of Jane Doe.
And they are kind of stuck in that. They
are. That's a good one. Shut in.
I don't know.
And
that's a good question.
We'll get back to that. But that is number 5, and we'll go up to number 4 on our shut in. And this is the classic out of this list, right?
Yeah.
A former child star torments her paraplegic sister in their decaying Hollywood mansion from 1962, Betty versus Joan. Whatever happened to Baby Jane?
I wonder if you can guess who I am. I'm Baby Jane Hudson.
Who the hell was Baby Jane Hudson?
She's sick and she's not getting any better.
You mean Jane? I think she seems much better lately. You wouldn't be able to do these awful things to me if I weren't still in this chair. But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair. Jane, please. Don't do this to me. Jane! Jane, please!
If you don't have Betty in that fight,
Betty!
I don't even want to know you.
She's great. She was Oscar nominated. She did her own makeup, and it's crazy.
It
and
so
it pretty
is.
much launched Hag horror, did it
Yes,
not?
it absolutely did. Yes, it absolutely did. I mean, that became, and actually both of them, Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, starred in a number of Hag horror films after this. And again, it's one of those where she starts off, she's partially, this is to say, Joan Crawford's character is partially shut in because she's in a wheelchair.
Right.
And then it becomes increasingly harder for her to leave the house because her insane sister, played by Betty Davis, is not going to let her out. And Victor Buono plays, and he's good in this. And he actually he's Oscar nominated as well.
You know who that was supposed to be, by the way?
Who?
Before Victor Buono, it was supposed to be Peter Lawford
Oh,
from the Rat Pack. But the story goes he bowed out at the last minute because he thought he was so close to JFK, he thought it would look bad because of the subject matter. That's the way the story goes. So Victor Buono got it. And yeah, he's great.
he is great. Well, he's nominated for an Oscar. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything else.
Oh, come on. He was King Tut in the old Batman series.
All hail to King Tut. Thank you, Grand Vizier, thank you. It was delightfully spoken.
King Tut, people.
No, I've completely lost what I was talking about because you're all King Tut and shit. I love the twist ending. I love the poor housekeeper. Like, she comes back and she's just all like, pay me! And also, what the fuck happened to your sister? And also, I'm going to be the one. Only one person dies. Only one person gets killed in this movie. Now, it's not only one person dies, but only one person is murdered in this movie. And it's this poor, helpful lady who just comes back to check on her. But she doesn't make wise decisions, the housekeeper.
No, but you know what else is creepy about this movie is...
The parakeet, the rat.
Well, no, the song.
I've written a letter to Daddy. His address is heaven above.
It's wonderful.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
because...
Oh, God, about my dad.
Yeah, Baby Jane was a child star and famous for singing these songs about daddy. And when she's still singing them, when she's they're so weird.
Well, it's a weird song for a child to sing, too, because daddy's in heaven.
Yeah.
So it's creepy to begin with, which actually sets a really good, like, macabre tone for the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, it's famous. And there was a whole miniseries about it a couple years ago because Betty Davis and Joan Crawford hate each other.
Yeah, not just about this movie, but about their feud, their ongoing feud.
Yeah, which I love. And I love that really it was Betty Davis who came out on top because, again, I'm going to choose Betty Davis all damn day long. But I mean, the truth is Joan Crawford is great in this movie. She does a really good job, especially as you find out what the twist ending is. And their chemistry is just perfect, as it needs to be. Two people who clearly would easily kill each other given the opportunity.
I'm so intrigued by those old Hollywood beefs.
Yeah.
You know, back long before any sort of social media or anything like that, they played out through the columns of like Hedda Hopper and people like that, and you had to get an angle, you had to get the upper hand. I love reading those just little details about how they used to just rib each other.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, there's the thing also that, they're playing aging starlets, and so it's like, oh, it's these aging actresses playing aging actresses, and both of them, and as they filmed it, are considerably younger than I am now, so fuck you.
All right, back to the comments. They seem to be stuck on the Funkos. Jenny says, yay, Funkos, and Jason says, I have way too many Funkos. Okay, maybe we should hide the Funkos.
Or maybe we need more. Maybe we are not impressive to them. Bridget, help us out.
I was actually slow to warm up to the Funkos. At first, I thought they were a little bit, but now I kind of like...
Which is funny because George collects stuff.
I collect some things, but I like some Funkos, and I thought they were a nice addition to your home office. Okay, so that is number 4 on our list of shut-in horror. And this one, I I don't know why, but when I think of shut in, my mind goes right to being disabled. I don't know why. It's either being disabled or the weather.
Okay.
And so this one, of course, she is in a wheelchair.
Which makes me think of two others that I think were like on the cusp, and one obviously Misery, right?
Right.
So
we talked about that
because that's got all of it, right? You're disabled. There's weather, and then there's Annie. So you're not getting out of the house, at least not with both of your feet intact.
Right. I mean, I could be persuaded with different variations of shut in, but that's just the first thing that jumps to mind for me. I don't know why.
I do. I think that it works because I think that it heightens the tension because they have more to overcome than other people who are trying to get out of a situation. Hush is another one that's good. Good Guy Jim plays a bad guy in it. That's one. And then Rear Window. That's another.
Yeah.
And he's shut in only because of his broken leg.
Right.
He can't go anywhere. He's just this creepy voyeur and the hottest girlfriend ever, and he seems to be paying no attention to.
Yeah, but when somebody comes in and says, like Dino did, wait until dark, now that's one that I would not have thought of, but then once he brought it up, I'm like, okay, I can see an argument for that.
And then another one that you could mention would be Disturbia, which is basically Rear Window.
Yeah.
Because he's just legally not allowed to leave his house.
Seth has a shout out for the Fury Road painting.
Thank
They're
you.
digging that, yeah.
That was my Christmas present last year.
Yeah, that was part of one of the galleries
at Gateway Film Center.
Gateway Film Center. One of the cool things, if you're out of town, if you've never been, not only is it a great movie theater, but periodically they change up. They have one of the halls, both sides, is an art gallery, and they give it to a different artist every time, and it's most of the time movie related. And I apologize, I forget the artist's name.
I do too.
But fantastic stuff. There were probably 2 or 3 more that we would like to buy, but that one is pretty striking.
I think the most important thing to point out is that this is the same view that all of my corporate friends see when we do Google Hangouts and Zoom meetings, that they also see that guy, and it creeps them out, and I don't care.
It's a power play.
Is it?
I'm in charge here, people.
It's like, oh, Creepy Hope is going to be on this call. Yeesh.
Anyway, thanks for that. Thanks for the shout-out. So we're up to number 3 on shut-in horror. This is a favorite of mine, and it's a very polarizing movie, but it really lends itself to a lot of conversation. It's from 2017. Secure within a desolate home as an unnatural threat terrorizes the world, a man has established a tenuous domestic order with his wife and son, and then a desperate young family arrives seeking refuge. It comes at night.
I want to thank you again for letting us stay here.
Just going to run through a few things. When we go out during the day, we like to stick to groups just for safety. The red door. It's the only way in and out of the house. It stays closed and locked. Most important thing, we never go out at night.
I think they're sick. Why's your mask on? Nobody's sick here.
Can't trust anyone but family.
You don't get it.
How old are you, Travis?
If they're sick, then I am too.
So we think this is a masterpiece of filmmaking.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
think
love
we
it.
both do.
But
and it looks the most like our current situation. It looks the most like what's going on right now.
Well, hopefully not. But I see where you're going with it. It became so polarizing right out of the gate because the title indirectly promises you something, and a lot of
trailer. It was a great trailer, but a misleading one.
And trailers, as we've said before, are designed to get butts in the seats.
Yeah,
and
it was a great trailer.
Some people thought they were really misled about how this, which I totally understand. I do totally get that. But I thought it was just fantastic. And it's Trey Edward Schultz, and I thought it was just a real incredible dive into human frailty. I thought. I loved it.
I loved it too. And I know there are a lot of people who don't consider it a horror film, which I understand. But I think if you look at it at the very, very end, and this perfectly lovely, loving husband and wife are looking at each other across the table, and they've just done something completely unspeakable. They've done something that even if they were to survive this catastrophe, global catastrophe, they'll never get over the fact of what it is that they just did. And I think that that's the core horror in this movie.
And basically, in talking about the film afterwards, Trey Edward Schultz said the title just kind of came to him early in the writing process, and it just always stayed there as an idea as he kept writing. And by the end of it, he thought it represented what came at night was anxiety and dreams. This movie has a lot to do with dreams, especially the way the dreams are shot. When Travis is the character played by Kelvin Harrison Jr.,
oh my
who's
God.
great, by the way.
Not just in that, in everything. He's great in everything.
Well, Trey Edward Schultz's last movie was Waves, which also starred Kelvin Harrison. And look that up, too. It's very good. Anyway, in this movie, when Travis is dreaming, the screen becomes CinemaScope style and then transitions out when he wakes up. So there's a lot of dreaming back and forth.
The movie
in this
looks
movie.
great.
It does. It looks fantastic. It also preys on paranoia because there is a plague, some sort of unknown plague affecting humanity here. And then once this group sets up a household and then they accept this younger couple in, there starts to be some finger pointing about who may be infected. Is it you?
Yeah.
Is it us? Is it and who needs to be shunned back out into the wilderness? And that's where the horror is for me in this movie.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of people totally disagree for the reasons that they thought they were sold a bill of goods that they didn't get.
Yeah.
And if these sort of themes aren't horrific to you, I totally get how this would not be your bag at all. But for us, it was just extremely, extremely effective. Brandon had a good thought, and one thing I was going to bring up, the shifting aspect ratio. That is a good point because as it really coincides with how Travis's family starts to tunnel in on their belief that the other family is infected.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very good point. I actually meant to bring that up. So there's a couple of votes, a couple of comments for It Comes at Night, and also mentioning Waves to see that one as well, which we did mention, but we totally agree. Number 3, It Comes at Night, Shut In. And this one definitely qualifies because they're shut in because they're afraid of what is out there.
Yeah.
For sure. And that moves us up to number 2, a favorite.
The most fun movie that you're going to watch while you are housebound.
Oh, from 2014, a young woman is forced to return to her childhood home after being placed under house arrest, where she suspects that something evil may be lurking. It is the fun of Housebound.
Some things have happened since I've been here. Things I can't explain.
What are you going to do against a hostile spirit?
I'm going to smash it in the face.
The restless spirit that lives in this house. What is your business here?
So, are you happy to proceed with the story that Mr. McRandall was attacked by a vengeful ghost?
Yes.
Righto.
Is this one, have we shown this at Franklin?
Yes.
Okay. I remember talking about it many times because it's a favorite.
It's such a great movie.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that you like it as well as you do is because it's New Zealand, and you are
I
not
know.
a massive fan of New Zealand horror comedy.
Exactly right. I'm not. But this one, for some reason, I think is done just right, and it's got some great lines in it and some great performances, some great deadpan, and it's one of those that you think of if somebody says, well, I don't really like horror movies.
Yes.
I think they would have fun with Housebound.
Yes.
Just look at the poster, really, and the trailer. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
It is. Morgana Riley she's the lead, and she's the one. She's just deadpan, hateful. She's hysterical. And what I love about her, she's got such a brilliant attitude the entire time. And she winds up confined to her parents' custody because she and her dumbass boyfriend try to break into an ATM in like the most idiotic way possible, and they get busted, mainly because her boyfriend is stupid. And so she's just pissed off all the time. And then she's mad that she is stuck at home with these people that she really can't stand. And the thing about it is that they're all the loveliest, sweetest people in the whole world, which just makes you hate her even more, but you can't really. And her relationship with her dad, or it might be her stepdad, I forget now, but is just adorable. And her mom, you love her mom to pieces. And what's creepy, so just like Disturbia, just like Fright Night, you know, she thinks that the person next door is a murderer. And so she's got to like sneak around and look in, and she really can't leave the house, and she's got this beeper on her leg, and he's very creepy. He is very creepy because there's this mystery of this missing girl, so there's this whole complicated, very funny mystery going on. There might be somebody living in the walls. There might be a ghost. It's adorable is what it is. And it's also pretty scary.
And it's got a great line that we like to use a lot. Punch him in the face. When you meet a ghost, what are you going to do? I'll punch him in the face.
That's right.
I love that. And I like the way
You know what?
I like
your
the finale.
Morgana Riley and your Jason Statham imitations are identical.
Really?
Yes, it's true.
Well, I work hard on my impressions. I think anybody that listens to this podcast knows that. My accents as well. By the way, Melissa and Tyrone both joined. So
Hey.
welcome. And Albert and Jenny too. So glad this is a party.
Congratulations, Albert and Jenny.
Yes, they're expecting a boy. They just found out that they're having a boy. So congratulations. Enjoy those onesies that we sent you. Congratulations again. So that is Housebound number 2, 2014.
One of the ones we wanted to mention with Housebound.
Yeah.
Though, because the theme of being stuck, where the biggest problem is the people you're stuck with. Again, this was Pine and Joe's idea. Was, and you and I went back and forth. Did it count? Did it not count? The Lighthouse.
Oh, The Lighthouse. Actually, I wanted to hold The Lighthouse out for our podcast on bean spilling horror. Movies where beans are spilled. And why did you spill them? I don't really consider them shut-ins. I mean, they chose to be there for the job, and they can leave the lighthouse. There's really nobody there on the rock. How long we been on this rock?
Help me to recollect.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't really consider them shut-ins. Do you?
They are stuck there,
Yeah.
and think that's really the whole problem, is that they're stuck there, and the one is super flatulent. And then the other doesn't appreciate his cooking.
Yeah. I mean, I love that movie so much. I have no problem putting it on as many
all the lists
that we can get come up with. But that's a good conversation. It's just not the one that I would think of shut-ins, but I love the movie. Let's go to number 1, and I bet you know what it is when you're talking about shut in somewhere for long periods of time. From 1980, a family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter where a sinister presence influences the father into violence. The Shining.
Mom, do you really want to go and live in that hotel for the winter?
Sure I do. It'll be lots of fun.
The only thing that can get a bit trying up here during the winter is the tremendous sense of isolation.
Is there something bad here?
I fear you will have to deal with this matter in the harshest possible way. Here's Johnny.
This has got to be the one that first comes to mind.
Yes.
They're shut in there for the winter because of the weather.
Yep.
Maybe that's why one of the first things that I think of shut in. And things don't go well.
No, and the thing is that they do it voluntarily. They know they're going to be stuck there. They know
Right.
they're not going anywhere, and they must know that they have a really unhealthy family dynamic right from the get-go, although Wendy doesn't seem like she's working with a full deck anyway.
Right. And I think that is one of the things that in reading about Stephen King's famous, reaction to the movie, that's one of the things he didn't like.
That Wendy was...
Well, specifically Jack, was that you could tell he was, I guess Stephen King, and in the book, he wanted to keep him a good guy, totally a good guy who was turned bad by the forces in the hotel. Not that he had any sort of imbalance before he came to the hotel. But one thing I did read recently that I hadn't heard before was that one of the things that gave Stephen King the idea for the book was that he and his family were staying at a hotel in Colorado, and they were among the last of the guests to leave before it was shut down. And he also noticed that among the last guests to leave were a couple of nuns.
Oh.
And he just thought to himself...
And a guy in a bear suit.
Yeah. And he thought to himself, well, now the hotel is godless. And then he kind of married that with an idea that he'd been working on about a kid with supernatural powers. And it kind of came from there. And he actually took the title from the John Lennon song, Instant Karma, We All Shine On. There's so many reasons to talk about this movie, and we have. It's on many, many lists.
Right.
But with this category, I mean, it's the granddaddy of shut-in movies.
Oh, it definitely is. That's where I think that it begins to deliver the tension. It's the same thing with, like, Alien or a lot of haunted house movies. It's the idea that so many horror films start with this: you cannot go, you can't leave, you can't escape this, and what's the worst thing that could happen while you're stuck here? And I think that The Shining delivers on that promise maybe better than any other film does. There are a lot of films that do it really well, The Haunting of Hill House, and there are a lot of films that do it really well, but I think that, and a lot of that has to do with Jack Nicholson's performance.
Oh my, yeah.
Because he's absolutely glorious in that role.
Another thing I just found out was Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Lloyd. He was originally supposed to be played by Harry Dean Stanton.
Oh, that could have worked.
Yeah.
Although, you know what? Harry Dean Stanton seems so sad all the time.
But he had a previous commitment in Alien. But the actor that plays Lloyd, Joe Turkel, I believe, is great.
He's perfect.
He's fantastic. It's hard to talk about it without bringing up the crazy conspiracy theories, although I'd rather not, because to me, even though the movie Room 237 is so interesting.
It's great.
It is so interesting about all the crazy conspiracy theories of The Shining. I think most of them just come off as so incredibly silly, especially when you see any sort of behind-the-scenes documentaries or vignettes with Kubrick, who just laughed the entire thing off. It's just a ghost story. It's just a ghost story. Who cares?
So why is Jack Torrance looking at a Playgirl in the lobby where he's about to have an interview? That's just a bizarre decision. That's a weird choice for a guy who's trying to make a good impression on his new employers.
It is. Well, he didn't bring the magazine there.
No, but
it
he's
was
looking
there.
at it. He didn't have to pick it up and look at it.
But if you're going to go, is that a test when you go to, if you go to a job interview, it's a test. I'm going to put a really wrong magazine here, and if the guy picks it up or the woman, then they're out. That could be, I don't know, but you're right. That is such a crazy piece of trivia to have in the movie, just to see if anybody picks it up, I guess. And another thing I love was that about the typing scene. I think it was Kubrick's assistant that actually typed all those pages, all of them. And when you hear him,
doesn't it make him sound like a dick? It makes him seem
it
like,
kind of does.
Hey, Patty, I need you to just type this one sentence for 400 pages.
And also, when you hear Jack typing, but you don't see him,
or whatever the hell else you hear in here.
Don't come in, I'm working. Kubrick made sure that the sound you heard was someone actually typing, all work and no play. Makes Jack a dull boy because he had been told that each keystroke sounds a little bit different. So you can't just sit there and just start doing all this, because it just wouldn't be right.
So I think you just explain why people read into all of his movies, that everything means more than it does.
No, but that's a very literal, very, very literal. Okay, if he believed that each key was a little bit of a different weight, and so you wanted to make sure it was right. But those types of details are astounding, because he's known for, of course, multiple takes.
Yes.
Multiple takes. So much so that...
It was Scatman Crothers.
Yeah.
He was so unhappy.
He made Scatman do that death scene so many times, and then the next movie Scatman made after The Shining was Bronco Billy, which was directed by Clint Eastwood, who's famous for one take. And I guess Scatman just broke down in tears and thanked him so much, because we're just doing one take and we're out of here. You are not Stanley Kubrick.
No, he's not.
I knew that was coming. So The Shining, as you might guess, sits at number 1 on Shut-In Horror. But we've got some good other movies to toss around that could possibly qualify as shut-in, although we didn't think of them right off the bat. Derek wants to know if you could pause the podcast so he can go make an old-fashioned. Well, I'm on empty as well.
I am also. Do you know what that means? We got to go. But we have to, so normally our next podcast would be at Fright Club, would be at Gateway, and we can't do that. So that means whatever the topic was, we don't have. So we're fishing for a topic for the next podcast. Should we do post-apocalyptic horror? Should we do Descent into Madness? Should we do something that doesn't look so much like our current situation?
Yeah.
Drugs. I keep wanting to do one on drug use, and we just haven't done it yet. What's a good topic for our next Fright Club?
Obviously, the best way to get a hold of us is on Twitter.
Unless you have one right here.
Fright Club Pod.
I can shoot you down. I can say no.
There's a Lighthouse conversation going on about the fucking seagulls, which I totally understand.
How often does George drop an F-bomb on the podcast?
Not very often.
No, it's mainly me.
Yeah. You had 2 tonight, I believe, and that was my first. On one hand, I kind of hope we do this again, but on the other hand, I hope we don't.
Right.
Because I do hope we get back to normal. Everybody gets back to normal here soon, because obviously we want to support our local movie theaters, not just here in Columbus, but all over.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be hurting. You made this point earlier today when we recorded our other podcast, The Screening Room, is that even if this ended tomorrow, which is not going to, a lot of the theaters are going to have a tough time coming back from this.
Yeah, because I feel like, everybody's going to go, yes, I need to go to the bar, I need to get a drink. But I don't know how many people are going to go, yes, I need to go sit crowded with a whole bunch of other human bodies in the same seats and armrests where 300,000 other people have been sharing their germs. But we hope that you do that.
Yeah, and I think
because we love cinema, and we love Gateway Film Center.
That's the thing. I think though there's a lot of people that so appreciate that that theater experience, and I know we are with a lot of them all the time at the Gateway Film Center because that is such a great place. We look forward to getting back there. We look forward to getting in front of the crowd there and doing the Fright Club Live. But you know what? We can still, even if that happens, we can still do this too. This is a lot of fun.
All right.
Let's do it. But if you can help us out with a category for next time, we would love to hear it at Fright Club Pod. As I said, you can also find us on Facebook, obviously, and Instagram, or at Mad Wolf Columbus, and the main website, where you can get all of our written reviews and then our other podcast, which I just mentioned, The Screening Room. That's all at madwolf.com. So this has been a lot of fun. Thank you guys.
Yeah,
I was hoping we'd have a lot of people pop in, a lot of comments, and I imagine the Me Toxins have their own party going on right now that we're not a part of, and that's totally fine. Oh, and Brandon says, I'm this close to typing all play and no work makes Brandon a crazy boy. Yeah, we were talking about your situation earlier, and don't do that to us again. You know,
that's right.
It's really not about what happened to you. Exactly. So you guys are great. We look forward to hearing from you all the time, and this has been a blast. So you guys have a great night. Have a great weekend. Until next time, she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast.
Hello, darling. This is Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And stay frightful, my friends.